Chapter 1: The Pendulum of War and the Battlefield of Dobropolye. If we imagine the war in Ukraine as a pendulum, then perhaps each swing is associated with a new place name, a new hotspot. Today, that pendulum swings towards Dobropolye, an industrial city located in the Donetsk region, with a special strategic position, almost a gateway to go deep into the center of eastern Ukraine. Over the past 3 years, the Russia-Ukraine war has not only been a fierce battle with firepower, but also a geographical tug-of-war. Looking at the defense map, Dobropolye is like a junction on the chessboard. Whoever controls this place will open a deeper attack corridor, or at least stop the enemy's attack. Why is Dobropolye important? Dobropolye is a coal mining town, only a few dozen kilometers from the front line. If the Russian army advances here, they will put direct pressure on the Ukrainian defense system around Kramatorsk, Sloviansk, which is considered the capital of the front line of Ukraine in Donetsk. On the contrary, if Ukraine holds on to Dobropolye, they will protect an entire strip of resource-rich industrial zones while maintaining a logistics corridor. Imagine, if war were a chess game, then Dobropolye would be the rook standing at the edge of the board. With just one wrong move, this rook could become a springboard for the entire army to invade. Pendulum in the history of war. The concept of pendulum of war is not accidental. Throughout history, many fronts have witnessed rapid changes in the situation. During World War II, the Kursk front was the scene of a pendulum operation by the Nazis, starting with a fierce attack, then being counterattacked by the Soviet Red Army and gradually reversing the trend. Today's Dobropolye has some echoes of that past, when the battle situation kept shifting, making it difficult for both sides to maintain balance. Russia concentrates firepower. Ukraine struggles to defend. According to information from the battlefield report on September 2, Russia has begun to increase pressure on the Dobropolye direction. The attacks from the south of Pokrovsk and the east of Artemivsk are gradually converging. This is not only military, but also psychological. Russia wants to create the feeling that the pendulum is tilting completely in its favor, both to put pressure on the Ukrainian army and to undermine the confidence of the Ukrainian people. However, the Ukrainian side is not standing still. Elite units mobilized from the Kharkov region have promptly supplemented the Dobropolye defense line. Like a boxer cornered in the ring, Ukraine is trying to take a hit and wait for an opportunity to counterattack. Example: military map. On the military map, Dobropolye looks like a triangle, with 3 potential attack directions: from Pokrovsk, northwest, from Horlivka, southeast, and from Artemivsk, east. Russia could choose a pincer tactic to close the encirclement, but this requires a large force and close coordination. Meanwhile, Ukraine only needs to hold one side of the triangle to break the entire Russian encirclement plan. This is the pendulum game. Just a small swing is enough to change the situation. A little humor. Locals of Dobropolye can joke. We live in a city where the pendulum of a wall clock falling can become international news. Indeed, this place is becoming the focus of the world, watching every step forward and backward of both sides.
Chapter 2: Causes and Consequences. Why does the pendulum swing? On the surface, the battle in Dobropolye is just a new battlefield in a long series of conflicts. But when analyzed in depth, we will see that the pendulum of war does not swing naturally. Each shift comes from military, political, and psychological causes, leading to huge consequences. 1. Causes from Russia. Russia is under pressure to prove that they can turn the game around. After months of slow advances in the Pokrovsk region, opening the attack direction to Dobropolye is like a new move to create a breakthrough. Military. Dobropolye is an important transit point. If captured, Russia can open a corridor straight to Kramatorsk. Political. The Kremlin wants to send a message to the West that it has never been out of breath. The pendulum swinging in Russia's favor will strengthen its negotiating position. Psychological. Russia wants to demoralize the Ukrainian army, making them feel that any last line of defense is only temporary. For example, like a game of checkers, when you have 3 X's in a row, you will want to move one more square to finish. Dobropolye is the checkerboard that Russia thinks if it hits, the whole game will turn. 2. The reason from Ukraine. Ukraine has a different problem. After months of intense fighting, they need to keep the trust of the West. Losing Dobropolye is not only losing territory, but also the risk of losing political support. Military. Ukraine is forced to maintain the defensive triangle of Kramatorsk, Slaviansk, and Dobropolye. Otherwise, it will lose its industrial corridor. Politics. The Ukrainian president needs to prove that the country is still resilient, to convince the US and Europe to continue providing aid. Psychology. Ukrainians need to see their army standing firm, not constantly retreating. For example, imagine you're playing a game of tug-of-war. If you let your opponent pull you back one more step, the rope will cross the red line, and the whole team will lose morale. Dobropolye is that red line for Ukraine. 3. Direct consequences. The swing of the pendulum does not stop at the battlefield. For civilians, thousands of families in Dobropolye had to evacuate. They carried with them the question, where else will we run? For the economy, coal mines, the source of life for the whole region, have stagnated. Ukraine's already exhausted economy is now in even more trouble. For international politics, every step forward or backward in Dobropolye is analyzed by major news agencies, forcing Western governments to reconsider their aid levels. 4. The resonance of the pendulum. In reality, war is never a straight line. It's like a pendulum clock. Each swing creates shockwaves that spread far and wide. Russia advances one step, the West meets to discuss whether to provide more weapons. Ukraine holds its defense line, but oil and gas prices on the international market fluctuate. Every battle in Dobropolye makes the whole world hold its breath. A bit of humor. If this pendulum were hung in the living room, guests would probably say, "Sir, this clock is running so chaotically. One day it tilts to the left, the next day it tilts to the right." But in reality, this is a war clock, and each swing represents a life on the battlefield. Chapter 3. Future Scenario and Global Implications. When it comes to Dobropolye, the question is not who wins this week, but where will the pendulum stop? There are 3 main scenarios that observers are predicting. 1. Scenario of Russia taking Dobropolye. If Russia takes control of Dobropolye, they will open an attack corridor straight to Kramatorsk. This is like adding a heavy weight to the pendulum, tilting it completely in their favor. Advantage: Russia can negotiate from a position of strength. Risk: Russia will have to maintain a large force to hold the land, while Ukraine can organize a counterattack. 2. Scenario of Ukraine holding Dobropolye. If Ukraine holds, this will be a symbolic victory. The world will see that the pendulum may swing, but it is not necessarily falling completely in Russia's favor. Advantages: increases confidence from the West, promotes aid. Dangers: Ukraine must spend a lot of troops, the risk of long-term exhaustion. 3. Stalemate scenario. This is the scenario that many experts believe is the most likely. Dobropolye could become a gray zone, where both sides claim partial victories, but in reality, neither side has complete control. Advantages: both sides have an excuse to continue the war. Dangers: locals become victims of endless stalemate. Global significance. Dobropolye is not just a point on the map of Ukraine. It is a yardstick for the entire war. If Russia wins, the European security order will be severely challenged. If Ukraine holds, the West will be more determined to invest in the war. If it stands stalemate, the world will continue to live in instability, from oil prices to energy security. Illustrative example. During World War I, a small town in Belgium called Ypres became a symbol. More than 100 years later, Dobropolye could be the Ypres of the 21st century, a place small but carries global weight. The end. Where will the pendulum go? The pendulum of war will eventually stop, but no one knows where it will stop. One thing is certain: every swing in Dobropolye today will be recorded in history, and history as we know it never tolerates forgetting. Conclusion and call. Through 3 chapters, we have gone from the overall picture of Dobropolye to understanding the reasons for the swing of the pendulum to predicting future scenarios. This is not just a local battle, but a mirror reflecting the entire situation of the Russia-Ukraine war and world security.
We Vietnamese people, maybe tens of thousands of kilometers away, but every movement in Dobropolye affects the price of gasoline, the price of wheat, or even international freight rates. War is a tragedy, but also a lesson. Looking at Dobropolye, we clearly see the fragility of peace and the value of diplomacy. If you find this analysis useful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the History and War channel so that we have the motivation to continue bringing more in-depth, accurate, and engaging content about history and war in the world.